Good morning. Our lesson today is about lesson 4, which is essentials for welding carbon or mild steel plates 1F to 4F. When we say 1F to 4F, we are referring to uh, the 1 to 4 number is the welding positions, and F stands for fillet weld. So when we say 1F, that is fillet weld in flat positions. Okay, and these are our objectives for this lesson. Number one is work safely, which is very much important to skilled workers such as welders. And number two, apply the essentials of welding. So this morning we will be learning the essentials of welding. When we say essentials, these are really needed in order to make a good quality weld. And third is use appropriate personal protective equipment. Of course, we will not we should not weld without these personal protective equipment, because they are there to help us lessen the exposure to hazards and minimize risk. All right. So for our integration of faith, values, and learning, in 1 Samuel 15 verse 22 says, "Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams." So how does this verse relate to our topic this morning, which is uh, about the essentials of welding? Of course, here it says to obey is better than sacrifice. So in our lesson today, it is better to follow the essentials of welding then and make a quality or good quality weld, then to repair a bad or not good weld, to repair a weld uh, which is not good, a weld that has no quality. Okay, so it is better that you follow the essentials of welding than repairing a weld which has no quality. All right, and this is our essential question. So how do we weld a good quality weld? What are our guidelines, or what are the things that we need to consider in order to make a good quality weld? What do we need to do in order to weld a good quality weld? All right, and we will be learning that today. So these are the essentials of welding. Of course, number one is working safe, work safely, or working safe. And of course, in order for us to work safely, we have to wear the appropriate personal protective equipment, or PPE, as prescribed to the welder. So what are the personal protective equipment that a welder must wear? So this is just a review already of our previous lesson about personal protective equipment. Of course, as a welder, you have to wear your welding jacket, which is it should be made up of either leather or jeans jacket, and then your safety shoes. You must also be wearing at least a maong pants or jeans, so that the spatters will not burn through that pant. If it's cotton, if it will burn through, and you will still feel the pain of that spatter. What else? Of course, as a welder, you need to wear long sleeve um, leather jacket or maong, then welding gloves. What else? You may also want to include welding apron like that. And of course, in order to protect your eyes, you have to wear um, welding shield, okay, or welding mask. So it could be a it could be a head shield or handheld shield welding mask. All right, and after those personal protective equipment, uh, if there's a tendency that a falling object or if there's a risk of falling object, so you may also wear a hard cap so that you are really safe. And after that, I think you are ready to go. Unless you want to uh, include some other, if you think you need to wear other or additional personal protective equipment, then you may do so, as long as that is for welding. Okay, so those are the personal protective equipment, which is already a review of our previous lesson. And second, do not clean weld surface of metals through grinding, brushing, and chipping without eye and body protection. So that is still part of the personal protective equipment. So never clean surface of metals without um, eye and body protection. So of course, the eye protection that you will be wearing is not the welding shield or welding mask anymore. It should be a clear glass or a safety glasses or face shield, okay, so that it would be very visible for you to see your work. And of course, those body protection, the uh, welding jacket will do as your body protection. And last one, of course, use tools, equipment, and materials properly in welding fillets. Of course, usually the aside from the welding machine, usually the tools that we will be using is, of course, it's either steel brush and then chipping hammer. Okay, so those are the usual tools that we'll be using in welding. And of course, if you need to hold the plate or the metal, then you may use a pliers or long nose pliers like that, so that you will not hold it with your bare hands, or of course because that's hot. Although there are some who forget that it's hot and they hold it with their bare hands. Okay, so you should use something to hold the metal because it's hot. All right. Next, uh, so these are the essentials of welding that we really need to follow in order to make a good quality weld. Okay. Number one, correct selection of electrode. And according to my former teacher in welding in TESDA, I just read it a while ago. Although his post was published in 2018, but I've just read it a while ago. These essentials of welding must be followed in order, meaning you should not start with number 5 and then proceed to number 1 or number 4 like that. It should not be like that, but it should be followed in order, meaning you have to start with number 1. And anyway, before I will put my own insight or um, understanding with the essentials of welding, I would like to share with you his post, and um, you read it on your own. Just forgive his grammar or the way he expressed himself, because it's a combination of Filipino and English like that. But he tried his best to communicate or to explain the essentials of welding. So this is his post, and for him, huh, that's about the essentials of welding. So I'll give you maybe 10 minutes to read it and understand. Okay, so I think 10 minutes is too much, so that's 5 minutes. And let me try uh, to explain what he said in English. All right. So according to him, uh, students usually tell him that it is hard to memorize the five essentials of welding. Of course, that is depends on the students. If they have a hard time memorizing things, then they really have a hard time to memorize. But remember, that's just five items. All right, that's just five items. So if you have no problem with memorization, then what I would like you to do is to internalize. Okay, to internalize the five essentials of welding. All right, so let's uh, try to memorize first or internalize first or know first these five essentials of welding. Number one is correct selection of electrode. Of course, your basis of selecting the type of electrode that you're going to use is uh, the metal that you're going to weld. So, is it a stainless steel metal? Is it a thick metal? Is it a thin metal? Is it an aluminum metal? Is it or it is it a carbon steel plate or steel pipe? Okay, so these are the questions that you have to think before proceeding to your work area. And of course, if you already knew the type of metal that you're going to weld, then you can also decide what type of electrode you're going to use. Alright? And when we say electrode, we already talk about it, of course, with the different types of electrode. If it is an aluminum electrode or uh, the high carbon or yeah, high carbon content electrode like that, we have talked about it. And then if it's, of course, there are also different sizes of electrode. So if you're going to weld a thin metal, then of course it is better if you're going to choose a thinner electrode. And if you're going to weld a thick metal and your machine can handle that thick electrode, then it's better for you to choose a thicker electrode, right? So it's important that you have to uh, correctly select the type of electrode used depending on the metal that you're going to weld. And second is correct current setting or amperage. All right. So after determining the size and the type of electrode that you're going to use and the metal that you're going to weld, then you can decide the current setting. Okay, and of course, as your guide, if the metal that you're going to weld is thin, you have to lower the current setting. All right, but if the metal that you're going to weld is thick, then you can increase the current setting. Okay, so that's we are going to adjust, rotate the knob in your welding machine and select the current setting or amperage of your welding machine. Okay, so that's the setting also depends on the electrode that you are using and the type of metal. So but usually if you don't know uh, what is exactly the recommended electrode or the current setting for your electrode, usually uh, the normal setting is 90 to 120 amperes. Okay, so it depends on your electrode and the type of metal that you're going to have. Okay, so correct current setting or amperage. So after selecting the electrode and then you have adjusted the current setting, then it's time for you uh, to scratch or to weld. Okay, now the arc length, when we say arc length or voltage, okay, the arc length or voltage is the distance between the tip of your electrode and the workpiece. Okay, the distance and the suggested, okay, the suggested distance is uh, around, is that I think 1/8 or is it 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch, or 3 mm. Okay, 3 mm. So that's the suggested gap, normal, okay, normal gap of an electrode to the workpiece. Okay, that's the arc length or voltage in order for you to create an arc. Because if there is no gap, your electrode will just stick to the metal, because there is in electricity there is magnetism, and if there is no gap, when you uh, touch the tip of your electrode to the workpiece, then it will just stick there because of magnetism. Okay, electromagnetism. So you cannot create an arc, and your electrode will just become hot, red hot like that. But it will not create an arc. It will not weld, or it will not melt the metal. So in order for you to uh, melt the electrode and the metal that you're going to weld, there must be an arc. And usually, the longer the arc, the hotter it is. Okay? Although, I'm not saying that when your arc is very short, the metal is not hot. It is still hot, but compared to a longer arc, it is hotter, meaning it is easier for the plate or for the electrode to be melted when the arc is longer. So you can also manipulate that one. It depends on the need of the work, the arc length. Okay, although the suggested or the regular arc length is, I think, 3 mm or 3 millimeters. Okay, so that's one. After selecting the right electrode and then adjusting it to the correct current setting, and then determining the arc length of your workpiece, then it's high time for you to position your electrode to a certain angle so that you will see clearly, or it would be visible for you, the the molten puddle of your weld. It is important so that you will know if you are still within the track, or you or if there are parts of the weld pool that lacks deposition or lacks metal deposition, then you can go back to that one or make it slower on that part. So it's important that you see the paddle or the weld pool, or the when we say weld pool, that is a molten metal. It's like a lava, but this is a lava made up of metal, because we are working with metal here. So uh, if you position the electrode vertically, you might not see clearly the weld pool. So lean you have to lean a little bit your electrode, let's say 15 degrees or 30 degrees from the flat surface, like that, or from 90 degrees you will lean it like 30 degrees from vertical. It depends. Okay, it depends on the work that you're going to perform, so that you would visibly see the molten metal or the weld pool. Okay, so that's the angle of electrode, so it should be correct. And later on we will discuss or the angle of electrode. Okay, if there are suggested angles of electrode on, and depending on the welding position that you're going to perform. And the last one, after uh, positioning your electrode to the correct arc length and then the angle, then it's time for you to move. Okay, move already. Of course, the arc is already there, the angle is okay, the current setting and the electrode is already okay. Then you can start welding. If that's what the if you're welding a fillet weld, then you can start moving from left to right or right to left. It depends on your discarte already. Okay, so these are the essentials of welding that you have every time that you weld, you have to follow, you have to perform. There might be other welders who are unaware of these essentials of welding. Okay, they might not be aware that they are already doing this one, but as welders who learned the theory, you should be aware of doing these things when welding. Okay, and if if you don't follow these essentials of welding, you might experience weld defects. That's why in our IFBL a while ago, it says there, obedience is better than sacrifice. Or if we translate that to our lesson, it is better that you have to follow the essentials of welding than repair a bad weld by not following the essentials of welding. Okay, so let's uh, let's go back to uh, some of the setup safety of the welding machine. So those are the core discussions that we have this day about the essentials of welding. Okay, so this is also important when you set up the welding machine. Okay, these are safety precautions in setting up the welding machine. If your place is not readily or it's not conducive, or when or it is not your regular place of welding. So these are the things that you have to consider. Number one, the arc welding should be properly placed on the work site and should be free from falling sparks, meaning the machine itself should not be placed in a position wherein when you are welding, the spatters, okay, the spatters are falling on the machine. You should avoid that one. Of course, uh, that might because the spatters are still hot, it might increase the heat that your machine is producing. Okay. Next, the machine should be stacked to save space, but there must be enough room between the machine for the air to circulate, thus preventing overheating. Okay? The air should be free from oil, dust, and metal fillings or metal filings. When we say metal fillings, those are the metals that are being removed from the metal when you are grinding it or when you are filing it like that. So the area should be free from that one so that the blower of the welding machine will not uh, will not vacuum or will not sip those dust or oil or metal filings inside the machine, and of course it might affect, okay, it might affect the performance of the machine. Remember, there is magnetism also, so it might go inside the windings of the machine, and in the long run it may create short circuit, or it may burn. If there's an oil, it may cause fire to the machine. Okay, next, the power should be turned off periodically and the machine should be cleaned after using. So this one, it depends on the duty cycle of the machine. Okay, it depends on the cycle of the machine. So if the duty cycle is high, meaning it can withstand a long straight or heavy working hours, then I think uh, the purpose of number three is for the machine not to get overheat. Okay, and of course to lengthen the work life of the machine. But it depends on the machine, okay? Because there are machines that even if you will weld straight for the whole day, it can withstand it. But if you are using a small machine that when you do a straight work and a heavy work, it may end up destroying, or you may end up damaging the machine because uh, it it is not designed for a heavy work. Okay. Number four, the machine should be placed away on cleaning tank and any other source of corrosive fumes that can be blown through it. So uh, if it's corrosive, it means it can damage the metal parts of the machine. It can corrode it, or it can make it rusty. Okay. Next, the workstation should be free from combustible materials. When we say workstation, is the area or the place where you are going to weld. Okay, it should be free from combustible materials. When we say combustible materials or flammable materials, okay, so when we say combustible materials, it may explode when ignited. Like for example, tanks or gas tanks, or what do you call that one? Petron tanks, like that. The combustible materials, or with the chemicals that when it catches fire, it may explode. Okay, and when we say flammable, it may create fire. Okay, so the workstation should be free from combustible materials. And number six, check the surroundings before starting the welds. Of course, that is to ensure that the area is conducive for welding. Okay, and this is already what we have discussed a while ago, which is correct electrode selection of electrode. Okay, and here uh, these are some types of the electrode. The E6010, but I haven't seen a 6010 anymore. Maybe it's phased out already. The usual type of electrodes that are being used in this industry is E6011 for root pass, like that, or for a stronger weld, and then E6013. There are also some who are using E7018, like that, which is even stronger than E6013 welds. Okay, so this is E7018. So these are the type of electrodes or the essentials of welding that we have to, or that we have discussed this morning. So if you have any question or clarification or reaction about the lesson, just message me, and I will try my best to answer your queries. Okay, so thank you very much and good day. Bye bye.